Welcome back to Two Marks and a Spark. We've thrown out the rundown because, quite frankly, what the fuck?
Hey,
We've been gone for a week and
yes,
everything is messed up. Okay.
news every
Hi,
day, but
Russ.
it's a mess. So much
Okay.
has changed in the last week. You don't know where to start.
Okay. So, a couple things. We are recording this on Tuesday at 4 Central. If something changes before this comes out, two,
And it should be up by tomorrow, by Wednesday.
hopefully. Two, as of recording this, nothing is official, but we have our hunches. Three, we're going to talk about the Brock Lesnar thing first. Uh, so we didn't go into any great amount of detail with it last week because we didn't know what we know now. But Brock Lesnar is not coming back.
I don't think we'll ever
If
see it again.
if we do, it will be by accident in a video package. Um, they reportedly have pulled him from the 40 years of WrestleMania mode in the video game, not like he would have been a huge part of that anyway. Because when you think of like the all-time great moments of WrestleMania, he's in what,
Yeah,
three of them? If
yeah,
that.
but I know lots of companies do that. They go through their archives and cull their history. I don't think that's necessarily such a good idea. I understand why they do it as a corporation. But don't forget, dictatorial governments and criminal organizations do exactly the same thing. Maybe not for the same reason, but I'm always very skeptical of that.
Yeah, I mean, as a publicly traded company, they kind of have
I know, I know.
to, which it's just kind of the environment that they're in more than anything,
And
that
I
Wall
think you're
Street
right about
environment.
that. That's why even though it's an irreversible part of WWE
They
history,
can't
you're not going to see any Chris Benoit matches
they can't
ever.
scrub Vince. They can't scrub Brock. Well, they could actually scrub Brock probably and be fine because other than his first run, he's never been full time. Like this longer run that he's had, keep in mind he's been back for 12 years almost. It had been 12 years in April that he'd been back.
Wow,
He he's been gone for half of it because he
sure.
shows up 3 times a year. He doesn't, I don't know. But they have pulled him from the 40 years of WrestleMania mode. They've pulled him from the cover of the game for the
Yes.
deluxe edition that he was on. They've
It
it's
what I had heard was that it was rumored that the plans that actually the one who got his spot was Braun Breaker. We were trying to guess which one it was.
yeah.
The word is it was Braun Breaker, but also they were planning on going into WrestleMania with Dominic Mysterio versus Brock
No, that would
Lesnar.
have been at the Chamber, and then they would have
Yeah,
done
at
Gunther,
the Chamber. I meant, yeah, it's the Chamber.
and then it would have been Gunther at Mania.
That would have been nice to see, but we ain't gonna see it.
My presumption is it will probably be Braun Breaker and Gunther at WrestleMania. I don't know that. Maybe it's Jey Uso because they did tease that last night on Raw.
Yes,
And
they
I do
did.
want to talk about Raw last night at least a little bit, but we're not going to do a full rundown. I don't think we're going to get into any full rundowns today. Just because there's so much going on.
All
But
the news plus wrestling shows almost every single day.
yeah, it's crazy right now. But it's that time of year. So, Russ, I want to go a little out of order here technically. So let's talk about this Cody stuff. And in order to do that, we need to talk about a specific segment from last week's Raw where Seth Rollins is trying to convince him to pick the World Heavyweight Championship at
Right,
WrestleMania.
right.
That felt weird.
Yeah.
And then Friday happened, and you're like, oh, that's why they did that. Um,
I don't
okay.
think anybody buys it. I don't think anybody believes for 1 minute that Seth Collins is the real
Is Roman.
title. But
Uh,
it's a good promo.
People, okay. And then, and then Friday rolls around, and to my knowledge, this is actually still trending right now. I could check. I mean, Toby Keith did die today, but
Right.
my presumption is this is still trending. Um, nope, it's not trending anymore. Well, for most of the weekend, We Want Cody trended #1 on Twitter.
How about that? Well, we've seen an awful lot of "We Want Cody" hashtag signs in the audience at Raw last night. Somebody went to a lot of time and effort to make those up.
They're all in the same font.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Almost as if they've been mass produced by somebody for a television broadcast. In other words, you've got a suspicion, like I do, that we're being worked beautifully.
In the most beautiful way possible.
We're being swerved and we're just falling for it, hook, line, and sinker.
Okay, I will say my immediate reaction. Okay, let's talk about Friday. Let's talk about SmackDown, the end of SmackDown. And I understand we're skipping around here and we're not doing a normal format, but like I said, folks, this show is going to be a little different because, huh?
Not a normal week, and we're not normal people.
No, and we'll talk about Dynamite stuff here in a minute.
Right.
Um, I,
Yes. Did your train of
okay,
thought get derailed?
by the fact by the stupidity that I thought this was.
Okay.
So Roman comes out at the end of SmackDown and he starts talking and he is shitting on everyone to the point where it is almost counterproductive. You're
Mm-hmm.
watching this and you're thinking, is he shooting out here? What the hell is going on?
An awful lot of heat.
And then Cody comes out and Cody's clearly not like in a great mood. So I'm like, okay, well, this is weird. And it just all felt really weird. Like it was a good promo back and forth, but everything just felt weird.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can describe it. And then Cody says, I want your title, but not at WrestleMania. Here comes The Rock. Oh,
And The Rock came out, and guess what my reaction was?
shit.
I'm not a fan of his wrestling, but at least we'll get to hear him talk. He's a good talker. And then he came out and he didn't say a damn word.
We should have looked at the clock. I think he came out at like
Yeah,
8:57.
right. Exactly. I thought, oh man, it's over. That was quick. That wasn't my favorite part of the show though. But we'll talk about that later.
And they do this stare down with him and Roman. And then they flash on the screen Thursday, what is that? February 8th, a press conference for WrestleMania.
Coming up on Peacock.
And I said, son of a bitch, they're shooting a Japan angle.
Mm-hmm. Like it's
Which
like a New Japan show.
I said, son of a bitch, they're shooting a freaking New Japan angle. What the? And tell me that's not what you thought too. You're like, son of a bitch, they're shooting a Japan
Right.
angle.
Well, imagine now how much they have to reshuffle because coming out of the Royal Rumble and going into WrestleMania, they were counting on being able to use CM
Oh,
Punk. They were counting on being able to use Brock Lesnar. And those are two big pieces gone off the playing board, and so things have to be shifting around. I'm not quite sure yet what they're going to do.
Well,
Perhaps
it would
they're not yet, but I hope they figure it out pretty quick.
it would certainly seem they have Okada in their back pocket.
Okay, yeah.
And we're going to talk about another piece of news later that makes you think a little. So the gist of all this is the weekend happens and everyone is mad. This segment becomes the most disliked video in the history of that company on YouTube. And somehow, nobody thought to think about it for more than 10 minutes without realizing we're being worked.
Yeah. Well, the crowd last night was primed and ready, weren't they, to participate with this angle?
Well, they were pissed. The crowd was not happy. This video package got shown at house shows and Rock got booed. Uh,
That's right.
and
It's
then we
like
get to Monday
1986. Die,
96
Rocky, die.
and then we thank God that didn't come back.
Yeah, it's still good.
Don't
I won't start it.
I
Don't
hope
blame
not.
me.
I hope not. That made a lot of wrestling fans look bad.
Yeah.
So I really hope that everybody now realizes this is a work. It may not have started as a work, but that's certainly how it ended.
Mm-hmm.
Because Cody goes out there last night on Raw and still doesn't make his decision. And they were acknowledging all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh, we're stupid.
Yeah.
Sure as shit. The first thing Pat McAfee mentions on Raw is we want Cody.
Right. Exactly.
And
He's doing
that's
a
when
good
you
job, by the
knew,
way. I think he's doing a good job too, by the way. I think.
and that's when you knew,
Yeah.
oh, we really got God on this one, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And they want you to watch the press conference on Thursday, so Cody still hasn't made his decision as of now. But
But I'm sure that there's going to be some kind of a big brouhaha that's going to break out at that press conference. The table's probably going to get knocked over and chairs thrown
they're
around.
doing it, dude. They're doing it in an arena where they've done SmackDown and pay-per-views before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello?
Sure.
There's gonna be a ring. Hello?
Well, yeah, the other, it's interesting too. They used a footage of an attack of on Seth by uh
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
they're having people who aren't cleared take bumps. I don't know why.
exactly.
Now, I guess if they agree to do it, sign a waiver. But what I don't understand, another thing I don't understand, they're building Drew versus CM Punk like they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, it ain't gonna happen.
Drew's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Homeboy is leaving the company. I think. He
Wouldn't
hasn't
be
re-signed.
surprised.
He hasn't re-signed and his contract is up at either the end of April or the beginning of May, whatever. And generally speaking, when it gets to last 2-3 months of a wrestler's contract,
Yeah. Maybe you want to quit or go home or go do something else.
now, of course, there are exceptions. Johnny Gargano's contract expired and he left.
Came back about a year. Was it about a year?
Both him and Candace took about a year off
Mm-hmm.
because she had the baby and whatever happened there. And then they came back. But Candace was technically still under contract. Johnny was not. but they brought Johnny back.
See,
And everybody thought, oh, is Gargano going to show up in AEW? Is Gargano going to show up here or there or whatever?
he's having a pretty good run too with the
He
tag
was
team.
never going to do anything but wait it out. And he was always going to take that time off. And I don't think he comes back to WWE if Triple H isn't in control.
Right.
But
Who's to say, he's there now, but who's to say whether he'll still be there in a year? In this
I mean, they
environment,
might.
you never know how long people are going to be around. I'm sure there are some in the new company that would like to get rid of any connection to the McMahons, get rid of Bruce Pritchard and everybody.
Well, we'll talk about that here in a second because a report came out from PW Insider that the Anawahi family may have finally surpassed the McMahons in terms of being the most powerful family in the wrestling business. Think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Top champion in the number one company. The Rock, who's on the
Right.
board, and a whole bunch of other guys who are in WWE, and maybe Jacob Fatu.
That's a lot of superstars going back decades, generations.
Generations. Arguably, they go back further than the McMahon line does.
First time I saw him is when Captain Lou Albano was managing the Wild Samoans, and they were wild.
Yeah. I just. Do you want to talk more a little bit about what you think they're going to do? Because I think it's going to be a three-way.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Because
afraid of.
why else? Or Roman's going to wrestle twice. But don't hold your breath.
Could end up having a three-way with The Rock thrown in there, which would not
Or
be my preference, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go that way.
or if they go really all in on this whole thing, they'll announce it as Rock versus Roman. That's how they'll announce it.
Right.
But then when it comes to the contract signing, Rock will sign it, Roman will sign it, and then Rock will say, "Hey, you jabroni, did you read the contract?"
They never do.
And
That's part
Roman
of
will
the
say,
story.
"What do you mean?" Or something like that. And then he'll say, "I'm the ref, bitch."
Yeah.
Hit him with a rock bottom. Cody comes out and signs it over Roman.
Hey, they could do something like that, We just never know for sure.
It would tilt the scales, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you think,
Also,
well, if Solo comes out there, he's
it
going to
would
get
free up Seth
killed.
Rollins to wrestle somebody else.
They're going to do that at the Chamber. Russ, this didn't happen last week. It happened last night on Raw. And we're going to talk about it more next week, but it would certainly appear, and this is not being reported everywhere, but if you watch the promo, it's pretty obvious. Liv Morgan appears to either be turning heel
I think
or
so.
becoming an incredibly vindictive babyface.
Yeah, I picked up on that right away.
Because that promo last night was a little different.
Yeah, she had just a little bit of an attitude, didn't she?
That was not a normal Liv Morgan promo. That was
She's not
a
sweet and nice as she used to be.
you fucked me over. Now I fuck you.
Yeah.
Well, the last little bit of news here, Rossi Agawa, who was the founder of Stardom. Russ, did you hear about this?
Who's that now? Say that.
Rossi Agawa, founder of
Where's the name?
Stardom. Founder of Stardom was let go from the company for poaching talent.
Would he poach?
We don't know, but we know it was bad enough to the point where it was multiple over the course of a few years, and he was fired by Bushiroad for it. And he's already starting a new promotion, and apparently Julia is signed, sealed, and delivered going to WWE, but she gave her word to Ogawa, so she's delaying her start date. That is the other thing WWE has in their back pocket.
Yes. They've got this working agreement with a couple of different companies now.
And it would certainly seem as though Okada, that feels like he's WWE bound to me.
I think it
I
would
don't
be. Why would I don't think you should go to AEW. We'll have a better run in WWE.
I actually disagree with you.
Do you? Well,
I think Okada is one of those guys who could go either place and he's going to be the biggest fucking star in the company.
you're gonna make big money too.
And it doesn't matter where he goes. Like, it is irrelevant what he does or where he goes because it's Okada.
Mm-hmm.
The one Japanese wrestler that probably most wrestling fans have heard of, even if you don't watch New Japan, even if you don't watch AEW regularly, Okada's a name. And if Okada ends up in WWE,
Yeah.
telling me that's not a big get going into this Netflix deal where you're going to have higher production value because you're on Netflix.
Right.
Think about Okada's entrance with WWE production value. That's
Right.
going to be insane.
I think it could be very good, and I do think it is going to go forward. I really don't think that whatever happens with the scandals is going to have anything to do with Netflix. The
Oh,
only response
because
they've made is that Vince McMahon has gone from the company, so it's not our issue.
and Netflix had a hand in him resigning as quick as he did because they threatened to pull the deal.
Yeah.
And I think Netflix said that, like, hey, yeah, we were gonna
Yeah.
put our hand up and say, you know what, not now. I still want to know what they're gonna do with Raw for 3 months because they don't have a place to put it. Um, Peacock?
Yeah, the USA Network contract runs out, and they have no interest in a short term little part of a year deal.
No.
I don't blame them.
Mostly because do you understand how much of a pain in the ass that would be logistically for them?
Sure. As far as they're concerned, WWE can just go on hiatus for several months.
Now they're still gonna have SmackDown, so they don't care. By the way, I think SmackDown changes nights within a year of being on USA. I think they go to Tuesday. Again. I don't want them to
By
go to
Tuesday in
Thursday
particular.
because that's where they were before.
Okay.
Even when the show was on Friday last time, they were taping it on Tuesday.
But I think it played on Thursday at one point, didn't it?
Yeah, and they were still taping it
All right.
on Tuesday. SmackDown was always taped on a Tuesday, and then they went live and it was on Tuesday for a while.
Yeah.
And then it was on Thursday for a while. And then it went back to Friday when it moved to Fox.
Been Friday for quite a while now.
Since they went back to Fox. Now, maybe WWE's part of WWE's deal here is, hey, we want Friday. Doubt it.
Yeah.
I think Raw changes nights for sure when it goes to Netflix. To what? I don't know. I don't know where it goes in terms of night, but it it definitely doesn't stay on Monday, I don't think, unless Netflix has real balls, like Balls of Steel. All right, Russ.
Next on the agenda.
Next on the agenda is all these wrestling shows. Finally,
Right.
we're almost 30 minutes into the show.
You want to summarize the highlights or the lowlights?
Well, we've pretty much already talked about the thing from Raw.
Right.
Um,
The storyline that you predicted several months ago, I think, involving Bailey and Io Sky, that seems to be right on track, just almost as if you wrote the damn thing yourself.
I
I
heard
wish
it,
you had them, then you could get paid for it.
right? So Raw last week, they went ad free for the first hour. They were at the O'Malley Arena in Tampa, Florida, for a crowd that was lukewarm for the most part. This show starts with Pat McAfee as it's announced that he is the new full-time color commentator for Raw.
Mhm.
I thought, well, that's weird.
Yeah, I like him.
No, because here's the thing. He left. He
Right.
was gone.
For
And
quite a
everybody's like,
while.
"Oh, well, college football's over." He's still got a daily freaking radio show
He does. He's very busy.
where he's got to be there every day. He's got to fly back to Indianapolis. Now, does maybe the fact that he works for ESPN now make this a little easier?
Probably.
Maybe, but I doubt it. Anyway, so CM Punk comes out after they announce this, and
You knew that something was wrong.
Punk cuts a promo, and he actually cuts a pretty good promo here.
Yeah.
And he started talking about his friend Chad with cancer, and
Not giving up the fight.
right, and everybody who and he made fun of his UFC career, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Um, Drew McIntyre comes out and cuts this thing off,
Drew's making a good
and
heat.
Drew is in a sour and a half mood,
Yep. Making a
and
great meal. He's just bitter as hell. Pissed at everybody that ever held him back in his mind in any way.
pissed at everybody that ever existed,
Pretty much.
potentially. The highlight of what Drew said here was, and I quote, "I prayed for this in regard to Punk's injury, and it happened."
Yeah. Wow. That's kind of mean.
I laughed
I
really
know.
hard.
I did too. I thought, man, that's rough.
And then Drew does something that will become a theme later, as in this past Raw, this last night's Raw, where he attacked an injured man.
Hmm.
He starts stomping on Punk's bad arm, and I'm like, man, I hope they wrapped the wrong arm on purpose.
Hmm. Yeah.
So Drew could go after that wrong arm and make it look a lot better than it actually
Sure.
was.
Yeah. It was pretty vicious looking.
Uh, Zayn runs out, makes the save. And then we had Balor and Priest against Ciampa and Gargano for the tag titles. This was a very good match. Uh,
I thought it was
probably
too.
not probably not long enough, but we might be getting a rematch at the Chamber, so who cares? Uh,
Damian Priest has gotten so good. It's really amazing, you know.
Damian Priest is incredible, and I hope they don't screw up his Money in the Bank, even though they pretty much already have. Um, and Judgment Day retain. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, they cut a promo, and Priest calls out R-Truth, and he tells him, Judgment Day is a family, and you're not part of it. And I like you, and I think you're funny, but
Which is why I won't do this. But
which is
yeah,
why I'm not going to do what I'm about to do. But Dominic, and then like a mob movie, he just
yeah,
hits him in the back of the head, and
right.
Miz comes out to try to make the save. He gets beat down.
That's
And
right. But the story's not over.
I would presume that WrestleMania is going to be some variation of Truth and the Miz and New Day against some variation of Judgment Day.
Yeah. There seem to be booking a lot of matches seem to be heading that way. I would agree.
And then we had a tag team squash match, Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark against Chelsea and Piper. Chelsea and Piper got absolutely killed here.
That was very, very fast, very quick.
Yep. And
They're not giving Chelsea Green much of a push at this point.
well, it's probably to heat her back up again. That would be my assumption. They finally went to commercial at about 5 minutes to the hour. And then we had the Cody Seth segment that we already talked about. Jey Uso and Bronson Reed right after that was fantastic.
Yes, it was.
Um,
I happen to like Bronson Reed a lot. It's hard to think of anybody having a bad match with Jay. You could probably lead anybody.
and then we had backstage again. Adam Pearce is there talking to Andrade. It appears Andrade will be on Raw for now. Emphasis on for now, because whenever Charlotte comes back, he'll be on whatever show she's on. Um, and then as Andrade, Aldis comes in and he says, and they're talking about how Damage Control got loaned to Raw for the night and all this stuff. And Andrade, Andrade says to Aldis, say hi to Selena Vega for me.
Yeah.
And that ends, and then we get Jackie in the back with actually before that, we get a really good Gunther promo, like on the stairs.
Yeah.
This was awesome. He basically says he's gonna be the greatest intercontinental champion of all time, which you could argue he already is.
Already is. As far as length of reign, right?
And then we had a recap of the Women's Rumble, and then Jackie interviews Becky. And then we had a fantastic Raw main event. Well, what was supposed to be the Raw main event before they added a bunch of stuff to it. And that is Gunther versus Kofi.
Right.
I thought this was the main event with the way they were building it.
Yeah. Seemed like it.
But this was one of the better Raw matches so far this year. And Gunther just, for the most part, murdered him.
Yeah. But such an amazing worker, you know?
For the most part, he was committing atrocities on this man, but
He has a
Kingston,
tendency to not be a rule breaker so much as he's just so damn brutal, cruel, mean.
he's just a brute.
Yes. He's got a little bit of a sadistic side to his personality.
And you definitely saw it here because he beat the shit out of Kofi.
Yes, he did. And Kofi can take a whooping. We know that.
Yeah. And then we had a Jackie interview with Sami Zayn talking about McIntyre and all that crap.
Drew and
And
Sammy.
then and then we get another video recap package. There were recap packages all over this show. Jade Cargill gets a recap package. So notably not on TV.
Yeah.
We had Asuka and Kairi Sane against Natalya and Tegan Knox. Asuka and Kairi get a win here. The crowd did not give a flying shit about that match.
Right.
And then we had a segment to set up for a thing later. Bayley and Damage Control are in the ring after the match, and Bayley starts talking about how she's going to pick Rhea. Until
Exactly.
here comes Rhea, and she starts talking a little bit, and then she gets cut off by an attacking Nia. Nia Jax attacks her, just absolutely kills Rhea. Um, though not in a fair fight, mind you, because she did hit her from behind and all that. And
Yeah.
Jax says to Bayley, Rhea's not making it to WrestleMania. And Bayley's like, well, if you'd let me finish, I'm going to make my choice Friday.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And she did.
Choice.
We saw that
That
play out.
choice became clear later.
That was the end of the show, wasn't it?
Oh, we had Drew McIntyre against Sami Zayn
Oh, yeah. That was the last match.
in what was a very good match, but
Right.
Drew hits the Claymore to win. And they were really playing up the fact that Sammy's never beat Drew, so
Right.
one would think that's going to
Right.
happen pretty soon.
Anything on NXT worth talking about?
I didn't watch it.
Well, I tell you what, can I mention a wrestler on there who I really like? He does a great promo.
Yeah.
Adriana Rizzo. I love her
Yeah.
promos. What a great
She's
gimmick.
really good at the promo. I'm not sure how much of a run she's going to get on the main roster.
I haven't seen her wrestle that much, but man, what a promo. You know, she's the kind of gal that just smash a broad right in the mouth.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah, I think I'll keep an eye on her.
Well, let's talk about Dynamite a little bit here.
Yeah.
Live from New Orleans.
Yes, it
This
was.
show very much felt like it was all building for this coming Wednesday's show. It did not feel like a show of its own. It felt like a show to set up this week's show.
Mm-hmm.
So, without like fully divulging everything here, Mercedes Monet is going to AEW.
Okay, yeah. That's what I hear.
I think that's pretty obvious now. Um, but this show kicks off.
Moxley and Hardy.
This was something.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the best Jeff match I've seen in a while, but
Yeah. And they're giving him a little bit of a personality change, something a little different, make it more interesting. He's not a good sport anymore. He's pouting.
he's pouting.
Jeffrey the Powder Hardy.
And Moxley wins, of course, with
Yeah.
a rear naked choke, and Hardy passed out. And Moxley offers Hardy a handshake, and then Jeff flips him off.
Right. And was that then when we seen a bunch of guys from CMLL?
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about this, but they've got a talent deal with CMLL now.
Yes. And I am not familiar with any of these gentlemen.
I mean, Mystico, but other than that, and he
Teasing
was tra
something with Moxley
yeah, Moxley
or maybe with the BCC.
and the entirety of the CMLL crew jumps the barricade and jumps Moxley. Um, I don't know what they're doing with all that. And then we had Hangman Adam Page, who desperately needed a win against Toa Liona. This was Toa's first singles match on television, and it was pretty good.
Yep. Crowd is not into Page like they used to be.
I mean, he's more over now than he was before the Swerve feud,
Which
which
is
makes this
interesting too, because Swerve seems to be so much more over than him.
no, but that means that program worked
Yeah,
because both guys went up,
very much so.
and Hangman wins. On a
Amen. Yes.
crucifix, and that was that. This was a good
To-
match.
Toa Leona.
Yeah, and it was a very good match. And honestly, for some of the stuff that they've done with Hangman recently,
Mhm.
they need to focus on just letting him have good matches because he's very capable of that.
Yes.
Anyway,
There are young buddies here, the EVPs, Jacques and Pierre. They're coming around demanding respect.
acknowledge them. Wait, wrong show.
That's right. That's right. You get
Wrong
fined.
company.
You get fined $500 if you say something wrong to them. I wonder how much would they charge me for saying "fuck you, boss"? I quit.
What do you think? How much do you think our boss would charge us for saying "fuck you"? I quit.
Well, I don't know. I did one time get fired from a job for insubordination, and what it actually
Russ
came down to
insubordinate?
in
Never.
reality was that I was insubordinate. So there you go.
Russ insubordinate? Never.
Yeah, I was. I had my mouth going out in front of my brain, and by the time my brain caught up with my mouth, it was too damn late.
Then we had Wardlow versus Commander. Wardlow wins. Couple of scary spots here, though. Adam Cole on commentary.
Yeah.
Uh, this was
Adam
short.
Cole being hurt again makes me think of Punk. A lot of these guys, they're so over. And how often do they come back and they have a very, very short run and boom, they're hurt again right away.
Well,
It's
Cole's injury this time was like a total freak accident.
yeah,
Like you couldn't have. It was such an
kind of thing
innocuous
you wouldn't
injury.
have been able to prevent you could because you couldn't anticipate it, right?
Like obviously, don't do a triple barrel backflip off the top rope and crash on your neck. Like obviously, don't do that. But he didn't. He was getting down from the ramp at Grand Slam
Mm-hmm.
and he landed on his leg wrong and something popped.
Exactly. Wardlow and Commander. They walk into the ring and I think one of these things is not like the other. One of
And
these
Ward
things just doesn't belong, and I know how this is going to end.
and
Hard to believe Wardlow won, huh?
not hard to believe at all.
At least it wasn't a long match. It was a smash. So there we go.
It was not long, but it was a very weird match in terms of pacing and structure. And after the match, we get a little bit of a beatdown before the Best Friends and Orange come out and make the save. Then we had good old Tony Schiavone again.
Right.
He's all
Good
over
old
this
Tony.
show. And he does a sit down with Starks, Big Bill, Darby, and Sting ahead of the tag match, the tag title match. Which, by the way,
Yeah.
Sting and Darby are not winning the tag titles.
Well, I hope not. I don't think that'd be a good idea.
Because then you have to beat Sting in his last match.
Well, I don't care if you're a fan of Darby Allin or not. I wouldn't want to put a championship belt on a guy who's that uh prone to high risk.
But they
I
put the
mean,
TNT.
he pushes the envelope to the point to where he's going to get hurt more often. I wouldn't want to put the belt on him, but then again, I'm not a booker, so what do I know?
They put the TNT title on him, and it worked out pretty good because that belt got really over because of him. And then they immediately ruined it for a long time before Christian was like, "Here, let me have it. I can do something."
Yeah, he did do something with it. Then we got the
Um,
patriarchy.
yeah, and that's great. And there's a big back and forth here. This felt like a lot of just setup, like I said, for next week.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Chris Jericho versus Kyle Fletcher. This was just rotten.
Yeah, nothing to get excited about.
And I love Kyle Fletcher, but this
Hell, what's
sucked.
great. I'm assuming his tag team partner is out with injury.
I would assume, but I don't know.
He hasn't been seen for at least a couple months. I mean, because it's been all singles ever since he came into the Don Callis cult. I'm sorry, family. No, I'm sorry, cult. Hey, when you paint pictures of yourself as Jesus, it looks kind of culty. You know what I mean?
I Don, it's a cult. No, it's a family. It's a cult, Don.
Yeah, he's really good though. The guy's a good talker. He's a good heel.
And we get a Deonna Purrazzo video package after Kanosuke wants to fight
Right.
Jericho.
This is very interesting about with the tattoo, the friendship tattoos with her and Tony going back a few years.
They are very good friends
Yeah.
in
Now,
reality,
right now,
which
though, not in storyline. Tony Storm told her to just blow it right straight out of your butthole. She's hilarious. She's just hilarious.
it was pretty funny. And then we get something that, quite frankly, I might have forgotten about uh, before I read my notes. The Bang Bang Scissor Gang is here.
Man, I don't know what to think about this, man. The Bang Bang Scissor Gang. They didn't know what to do with these guys, apparently.
Okay.
We now got Juice in cardboard cutout form since he's hurt. But yeah, I don't know what to think of the Bang Bang Scissor Gang. Yeah, I find it interesting that there was a big, very personal rift between father and sons that they just have kind of glossed over. They haven't really explained, well, how can they all of a sudden just pick up and just, oh, we're just one big happy family now?
After they fought each other, I think 3 times last year.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't even go for the big, oh, Dad, forgive us. We didn't mean it. Let's all get back together. Because maybe they are
Um,
really back together. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's something. It wouldn't
yeah,
make
they're
sense
gonna
for this to
turn.
happen. It would make sense for the guns to be setting the other guys up. That would make more sense.
That's exactly what's going on.
Well, I hope God to God that's it.
Man, dude, Jay White has got to be thinking, what the fuck am I doing here?
You think he's had any second thoughts? I'm surprised they haven't used him a lot more prominently. like I said, I was less familiar with him than you, obviously, but when I see what he can do in the ring, I was shocked that he wasn't being used better.
Listen to him talk.
Well, I like his wrestling better than his talk, and I'd like to hear Juice talk once in a while. I like, hey, shut up, Jay, let Juice talk, but that's just me.
And Deanna Parazzo has been all over the show since
Yeah.
she showed up. And thank goodness Tony figured out, oh, she's really good.
Yes. And this was a good match too with her and Taya.
Deanna Parazzo versus Ty Valkyrie with John Morrison at ringside.
Yes.
And
Very good. John, what's his name now? Is
Johnny
it
TV.
Morrison?
It's Johnny
Every
TV.
time I see him on every different channel, it's Johnny something different.
Or Johnny Come Lately.
Yeah. We can just be a smartass and still call him Johnny Nitro.
I call him John Morrison.
Yeah.
It's a shame. That's another one. Johnny Nitro, Johnny TV, John Morrison, whatever you want to call him. What are they doing with him?
Nothing. And he's very good. He's very, very good. I don't think that going way back to when he was in WWE, I don't feel like he was ever really used to his full potential there.
Now, I understand sometimes a guy leaves WWE and he's got a stink on him that you just can't quite
Mhm.
mow through, but Impact did it just fine.
Yeah.
Well, Deanna wins, no surprise, because it's going to be her and
Right.
Tony at the pay-per-view.
But I'm looking forward to seeing more of her and looking forward to the match with Tony.
I hope they put the belt on Deanna. I hope they just say, fuck it.
I think that'd be great.
Because if you're Tony, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but Deanna Purrazzo is like one of the best female wrestlers in the world, period.
Yeah.
It's not a question.
She was not in her last run in WWE. I mean, no, she was in NXT, but actually WWE was very short, wasn't it?
And then she went to Impact and broke every single knockouts record imaginable.
Yeah.
Winning streak, unbeaten run. I mean, the reason they had her do that was not only her talent, but the fact that they needed to kind of scrub Tessa Blanchard.
Oh yeah. For
And
reasons that are you could do a whole show about.
for reasons you could do 3 podcasts about a movie and potentially a book series. Uh
And that's just the thing she's been accused of, let alone what she actually did.
Yet AEW might have tried to get her last year, so who knows?
Anyway. Oh yeah, hey, and then we get Joe on commentary, which is great. I don't know about you. I like to hear what Joe has to say. The crowd loves Joe.
I have a fear that his title run is going to be too short
Could be, yeah. You could just be holding it.
for Swerve. Yeah.
Mhm.
Speaking of Swerve, he's in
Right.
this match here in the main event,
RVD. I watched
and
I watched a podcast with RVD early today, and you're not going to believe this. He was smoking marijuana.
really,
That's shocking. Right in front, right up
dude,
in front of God and everybody.
the guy who has marijuana logos on his tights smokes weed.
Right.
Oh no! It's like, yeah, no kidding. Anyway, uh,
RVD, we did not expect him to win, and he didn't,
no,
but he did really well, and the crowd was really into this match. And I thought this was well done. I think Nana helps. I think he's entertaining, and I think he works the crowd well. And
but when
every time he
Swerve
asks
goes
whose house it is, it's never anybody but Swerve's house.
when Swerve goes babyface, he's got to keep him, right? He's got to
Yeah.
keep Prince Dana.
Right. Yeah, they're starting to make that very clear by him saying things like, I've done some horrible, horrible, terrible things in the past, but I had to do them. But now I'm focused on the future. You know how wrestling fans are. Oh, we forgive you. We forgive you. I mean, when you break into your opponent's house and threaten to kidnap his kids and the crowd is still cheering you, it's time to turn baby face. I mean, if that ain't going to get people to hate you, nothing is. What does he got to do? Shoot somebody?
Actually kill somebody?
Yeah.
Put somebody on the ground? Um, I still think we're getting a three-way at the pay-per-view. So they don't
Swerve.
have to pin Joe.
Yeah.
I think it'll be Swerve, Hangman, and Joe, and I think Hangman takes the pin.
Hangman wins or what? Takes the
Hangman
pin?
eats the pin.
Yeah.
Because here's what you
Coming from
can do
Swerve.
then. Here's what you can do then. You don't have to have Swerve win if you don't want to.
Right.
You can keep the belt on Joe a little while longer, and you can still um do Swerve and Joe again
Mhm.
at Double or Nothing or whatever. Because Swerve didn't get pinned.
That was their other dealer's choice. Dealer's choice. I never heard of that gimmick before. I probably haven't just forgotten about it.
Well, Russ, let's speculate a little bit here because as this show goes up, Tony Khan is going to be making a big announcement on Dynamite.
Well, I'll probably watch it.
The big announcement gimmick is back, Russ.
That's right. And the rankings are back. The official rankings.
And they're
Are
making a
they
mockery of
actually,
it.
I tell you what, if they actually used those rankings in a consistent way to book their matches and seed their tournaments, then it would actually be a lot of fun. But they said that's what they were going to do when they started, and it really didn't work out that way.
Who knows? Maybe they're turning a corner. Overall, I thought this Dynamite show was actually really good.
It's
Although,
better.
Russ, I don't know if you noticed this. Dynamite is consistently good enough to the point where you don't want to just turn it off.
Yeah, I would say so. I may be tempted to occasionally fast forward, but
But
but I usually don't, even when I want to, because the fact of the matter is I want to be able to talk about what's on the show, and so I have to have at least seen most of it at least one time, right?
well, Russ, we're gonna skip Collision because I didn't watch it. Uh
All right.
I was busy Saturday night. I
Have
just
you
did not
seen
have
any
time.
of the new Impact?
No, because again, just
Once again, I just want to say Frankie Kazarian is undergoing a big heel turn, and Brian Myers is getting pushed pretty good. And by the way, I when I watched Brian Myers, and it was just driving my old brain crazy, driving me crazy. And finally, after watching this guy for like 3 weeks in a row, it just popped into my head and said, Curtis Hawkins, Curtis Hawkins, the guy that was so good at WWE and they didn't have any idea what to do with him. Good example of how in TNA he can really shine as a bigger fish in a smaller pond. Anyway, that's all I got to say about TNA. That was the standout to me.
I think TNA, and here's the thing for me, it's hard for me to watch Impact sometimes because I'm not watching it on TV and I do have to watch it the next day on the app.
All right.
So
And
sometimes I just
I'm
kind
still
of
watching it on the Access Network, which is like the week after the Saturday or whenever it doesn't it debut on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Thursday.
Okay, so then by the time it gets to Access, it's late though, isn't it? Like a week late.
If you're watching it on Access TV, no.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
Russ.
I tell you, the reason why I ask is because Access TV and TNA really in their promotion don't really go out of the way to make it clear when the new episodes are, exactly what time and what day, because they have TNA reruns all the time. But I've
And
never seen them say an ad, hey, Impact, 7 p.m. this Thursday, all new show.
okay, Russ, let's take a minute here because Uncle Russ Talk Shit is here.
Right. I just recorded episode number 2. It'll be out later in the week. I talk about the
Shit.
superiority of vinyl record albums over compact discs, about the analog over digital, and I pulled a few examples of some collectible record albums and showed them off in a wide range of music. You got punk, old country, a little bit of everything.
Well,
Ruckle Russ talking shit, and that shit in as it's stuff. Now, I didn't talking shit as in talking bad, but talking about all your shit, like in a George Carlin kind of a way.
well, the former Uncle Russ's comic talk, now Uncle Russ talks shit, right here on Lock 22.
And if they're going to censor that and say we can't call it that, then I'm going to call it Uncle Russ Talks Feces.
That's a choice. That's a choice. Okay, Russ. Let's kind of hit the highlights on SmackDown here. We kind of already hit the
Sure.
big one. Um,
We've got a good direction now for Bailey.
we've got a
I
good
think.
direction for Bailey. We didn't get to talk about it, but Pete Dunne is back
Oh, that's right. Yes, he is.
finally. And it seems like they may be also headed for a title match.
Yes.
And
We already talked about the segment with Roman.
but the damage control thing. Let's talk
Yes.
about this. Because
Yeah.
I thought Bailey did about as good of a job in steering this thing where it needed to go.
Mhm.
And I know, well, it's mostly scripted and blah 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 lines, this, that, and the third. She still had to have the tone right. She still had to know where she needed to get.
Oh, I thought she did good
And she's gonna be a baby face
for the first time in quite a few years.
for the first time in a very long time. She turned heel like right before the pandemic.
Yep. And I thought that she's been a good heel this whole time. One of the things that, she can't talk, and in the ring, she's solid and she's dependable and she really knows what she's doing. I think she's worked with so many different people. I can't ever remember a match that stands out in my mind of hers as being a noticeably bad match. I don't remember that.
Same thing with Io.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, well, Io doesn't speak good English.
So he doesn't need to.
Have you watched this show in the last 3 months? That doesn't matter anymore.
Doesn't matter at all.
It never should have, but it definitely doesn't now.
Right. Yep.
Like, here's the example I use for just sports as a whole, wrestling included. Shohei Ohtani is currently the biggest star in baseball.
Right.
Do you know how he communicates?
How was that?
Do you know how he communicates, Russ? He has a translator.
Right. Exactly.
Do you know why, Russ?
Because he can't speak English.
Well, he can, but not
Not very
great.
good.
And he's slowly learning. See, that's the trick.
Right.
You learn just enough to skate by, and then you're fine.
Well, with a language, you can only go so far studying the grammar, and then you're not going to get any further unless you immerse yourself amongst the people that speak it, and then you'll begin to pick up more that way. But
Pretty
the
much.
only The only reason I ever studied languages was because I thought the teachers were pretty.
You know,
I'm sorry.
you know, that's pretty funny. Um, I really think that this SmackDown show was really weird. I don't know how else to put it. There's just a lot of stuff here. But all right, Russ, let's talk about it. WrestleMania card prediction.
Yeah,
I think it's Drew, Sammy, and Seth for the world title.
three-way.
And I think Rock ends up being the ref in Roman Cody.
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. That very well
But
could be.
I think Bailey and EO close night one of WrestleMania.
That would be great if they could have the main event.
I don't see any other way to do it because if it was Punk, okay. But Seth may or may not make it. So Seth doesn't make it. This is for the vacant world heavyweight title.
Well, it's not. We don't know 100%. And I to tell the truth. I don't want him to come back too early. I mean,
But
I
he's
don't
been
want these
so
guys
great.
to end up crippled.
And Seth has been so great for so long, and he's finally getting his flowers for it.
Right. But I think of a guy like a Darby Allin, who every time he has this attitude that I'm not going to slow down, I'm not going to restrain myself. I said, well, your career's going to be short, so save your money. Save your money.
Seth is making a lot right now.
That's good. And I hope he's saving it up because he's got kids. I got kids.
Remember Heath Slater with that gimmick?
Yeah,
He's still got it in TNA.
yes, he does.
Um, all right, Russ. What did you think the best show of last week was?
Well, let me think.
Dynamite, right? I think. Or Raw, maybe.
Raw. I would probably go with Raw because I enjoy seeing Drew McIntyre wrestle the main event with Sami Zayn in general. And I didn't hate Dynamite by any means. It wasn't an awful show, but
I heard Collision was rancid.
oh, it wasn't that bad. Collision was
Collision.
it's Collision, right? You're going to get certain things in there. We didn't have any more. I we get was that the show where we saw Sarita Deep? I can't remember whether it was
Yeah, it was.
I think it was Collision. It's good to see her back. I think she's very good. And I can't remember for sure, but do I remember her from TNA? WWE I remember, but wasn't she at TNA?
I think so, briefly for like a
Yeah.
really weird run that
Almost
didn't
as
go
brief
anywhere.
as CM Punk's run at TNA. It's like if you blinked, you missed it.
Yeah, remember Punk was like part of Raven's flock?
Right. And it was like he was there for less than a month, it seemed like. And boom, he was just gone.
No, it was the Gathering. That's the group they were a part of in TNA.
Gathering. Okay. But that
And
was
I'm trying
Raven,
to,
wasn't it?
yeah, it was Raven. I'm trying to remember who else was in the Gathering. Hang on. It was this weird group. And if you go back and look at it now, it's crazy.
Crazy Stevie.
No.
Not
So it
that.
was Raven, Julio De Niro, CM Punk, and Alexis Luray.
Okay.
Now, I'm trying to remember who ended up becoming Mickey James, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, Julio De Niro, to my knowledge, this poor sap, I don't think he ever did anything in his life. But in a group, you've got a Raven, Punk, and Mickey James.
That's
What?
right. That's pretty good star power right there.
If you do that now,
I think Mickey James isn't her husband the one on Raw on SmackDown? Nick, I believe they were a couple if I remember right.
They are.
Do you think, by the way, speaking of that, do you think there's any possibility that Nick Aldis and Adam Pierce could sometime, maybe it just did a one-off, just for the fun, have a match?
Well,
I would enjoy it. I don't know if they do that or not. I think it'd be fun.
I still think the money might be in Cody and Nick.
Oh, yeah, could be.
They have history.
Hmm.
All I'm saying.
Could be. That'd be
They
good.
fought for the NWA World Heavyweight title twice, including in a 2 out of 3 falls match at an NWA show that was really not a very good show, but Cody and Nick had a great match, and then they did it again at All In, the first one, when this whole AEW thing kind of came into focus, and we started seeing where maybe this was going to go. But all right, that's going to do it for us, Russ.
Yeah. Although the only thing I wanted to mention is that I thought it was worthy of mention in last night's Raw, and it continues from week to week to week. I continue to be very, very impressed by the Creed brothers.
Oh
They're
my
bringing
God, they're good.
an old school flavor that that company hasn't seen since the revival was there, and I hope that they're used properly. And so far, I think they're being used very well.
Those are Triple H guys through and through.
Yep.
All right, Russ.
Yes.
We're
It's
going to get
been
out of
good.
here. Good seeing you again, buddy.
Well, let's do this again next week.
Well, we do it every week, Russ.
That's the plan.
Until they turn the lights off, we're going to keep doing it.
That's right.
And when they turn the lights off on us, well, we might still try to keep doing it, but it's going to be really dark,
That's
borderline satirical.
right.
All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. Russ,
Thanks.
pleasure as always.
Yeah.
Folks, we'll be right back here next week. As I like to say at the end of every show, I'm Ben Shrewsbury. That's Uncle Russ. Damon, play my music.